That's, you're talking about the girl behind?
Yeah.
That's Kitty. Kitty, he's talking about you. Come up and say hello.
She's like, I know where this is going.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, so I've really been able to absorb your, sort of, be satisfied now idea, practice, practice informance play aspect of right attitude. The stuff you mentioned about bringing samadhi, bringing the different factors together. I've always thought of Dhamma, the way the Buddha teaches it, as being like chemistry. You put the certain ingredients together, and then there's a chemical reaction. Like, so you put like the factors of the path together, then there's like this chemical reaction that is at that state of awakening, or so to speak. But anyway, these 4 ingredients that you've been talking about to me and your other students: sati, right attitude, right effort, and right area samadhi. Yeah, I don't know. It clicked. It makes a lot of sense. Since I've started putting that into practice, I haven't had any issues with moods or bad habits. The things that I talked to you about on day 1, thinking about the future, chasing after nirvana, things like that. Everything feels very smooth. I kind of have previously gained some dispassion towards like peaks of emotion, things like that. So I don't feel that I'm having too much like PT and things like that, but there's like just a general sense of well-being that's continuous. So that's been really great. So I guess the question I wanted to come to you with today, so the sitting practice, which I know is like the rehearsal for everything else. What I'm finding is a little bit odd is, despite being in this state of like satisfaction throughout the day, my mind still will wander or get drowsy when I try to sit. So wanted to just kind of start there and see if you had any advice for, I guess, kind of what's next. Or
Well, yes. That in fact, everybody who practices, especially beginners, they always get drowsy. And then they think that there's something beautiful or special about that. Oh, I've attained a certain jhana state, when in fact you're just drowsy. Okay. And that when we get drowsy, that's also when daydreaming really gets ferocious. And that we can invent all kinds of things and think that these are spiritual experiences, where in fact it's nothing but daydreams in a drowsy state.
yeah, I definitely don't prefer the drowsiness. It's to me the most difficult hindrance to overcome.
Actually, I have heard and seen that the drowsiness is in fact one of the last hindrances, and that I have I have actually seen abbots and very, very senior monks fall asleep and drowsiness, and they're the ones who were, let us say, supposed to be the bell ringer. So the abbot is up front, and all the monks are sitting around him, and we all chant and everything like that. And now it's time to sit for 20 minutes. And then somebody about 22 minutes, 25 minutes in, clears his throat, trying to get the abbot's attention.
Probably should just stand up and ring the bell.
Well,
yeah, I call it the goth rock head banging, when you get into that state and you're just kind of slowly going back and forth, kind of like dipping and swinging up.
Exactly. We begin to nod.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Ajahn Dhammavidu had a really funny way of describing that.
Actually, there is an easy, direct cure for that. That one of the reasons why we get drowsy in meditation or in our practice is because we're not factoring in all the factors that need to be there. And in this case, paying attention to the body and the breathing. Because when we're breathing well, we're very unlikely to get drowsy, unlikely to get tired. The other time when people will get tired is because they're working too hard. They're expecting something. And drowsiness is a lingering situation, but it's not the worst of the hindrances. That in fact, you could say that drowsiness is a hindrance that's kind of situational, depending upon the circumstances and whatnot. But wanting things that we don't have is quite often triggers
Yeah.
are all over the place for that, as well as restlessness,
Hmm.
worry, and doubt. That in fact, I would say that the biggest um, hindrance for most people is doubt, and that drowsiness is the most persistent.
Hmm.
But they're
Yeah,
all,
restlessness used to be a problem, not as much anymore, but the head banging is, that's what makes me avoid the sitting a lot. I'm like, I don't want to sit there and just head bang for an hour.
I suppose, by head banging you're meaning nodding as
Yeah,
opposed to
yeah.
actually banging.
Well, sometimes.
I'm imagining a heavy skillet or frying pan that's suspended by a rope from the ceiling so that it's right in front. So
Hmm.
that when you start to nod, you actually do a head bang. That would actually wake you up.
Yeah.
But in fact, there's several techniques for that. One of them, let us say, when people are used to wearing shoes, that you can take a shoe off and then hold the shoe from the heel the way that I'm holding this, like
Hmm.
this. And so this is the position, except that the shoe is a little heavier. You can do it with a cup, but don't do one with one that breaks. And what happens is that as we begin to nod off, the hand changes and it'll fall. Okay. And if you have the shoe positioned to where when it drops on your other foot or hits the leg or something like that, that'll wake you up. Okay.
Okay.
Now, having those little nodding off sessions is not bad. That, in fact, in a way, they're kind of refreshing. That there is a lot of information, in fact, about, let us say, highly skilled people, well known, who do that technique that I just mentioned. One of them was John Fitzgerald Kennedy, President Kennedy, who was elected in 1960, and another one that, in fact, he says he got it from Einstein to just take a little nap. So
So,
taking little naps, it's going to be little because you're holding a shoe or you're holding something in your hand. You could actually go so far as to have just tape like this and just hold it so that if you relax your hands, it'll fall. And that's then the wake up call that fall happens. But you knot it off enough so that the body relaxed enough. Okay. Those are not terrible things at all to happen. What's terrible about it is that you go to sit for meditation, you nod off and you stay knotted off.
hmm.
You do actually get drowsy and tired and sleepy and go to sleep and then start daydreaming. So, in order to prevent that, we need kind of a little trigger or a signal about when the body actually gets relaxed because the hands will let go of whatever that we're holding. Now, if I'm holding it like this in my fist, then I'm not likely to lose it, especially if I intend to hold on to it. But I'm talking about holding it like this so that if one of the fingers relaxes, it's going to fall.
Maybe that's why some Buddha images have like a ceramic bowl in his hand. Maybe he was just trying to stay awake and not break it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. All right. So, in fact, the ceramic bowl is playing this game, only we're playing it dangerously because you could actually break the bowl.
Hmm.
Another one would be holding the hammer by its handle at the bottom and holding it with two fingers so that when you drop that hammer, it lands on your foot.
Hmm.
Okay, you're not likely going to drop that hammer a second time.
Well, I was kind of using a somewhat dangerous technique, but I've stopped doing that. I was, I meditate here. And my wood stove is on top of like a 2-foot brick hearth. And so when I nod, my forehead gets really close to hitting the edge of that. And I decided that I'm going to eventually smack my head on that. So now I scooch back and I stay out of the way of that because I was like, no, I'm not going to test that because I'm getting like that close to like smacking my head on it. I like, ooh, But so I thought that being worried about that would keep me from nodding, but it really doesn't. I'm just like swaying within an inch of it over and over. So I was like, I'm somewhat conscious.
Now, here's several things that we can do about that. One of them is that often it can be because we're sitting too long.
Mm-hmm.
If we're sitting way too long, then we can get drowsy. That in fact you can experiment with and find out for yourself that the mind, we can't stay focused. We call it attention span. And we found that the average untrained person has attention span something less than 20 minutes. And that in fact, what we're actually practicing with the anapanasati is that it actually increases our attention span. That in fact, old senior monks are well known to give long Dhamma talks,
Mm-hmm.
2, 3 hours, 4 hours. They can just keep going with it, making a point. Okay. But most people can't sit through that Dhamma talk without nodding off. So the attention span has something to do with it. And sitting too long, we will get drowsy. And so that's something to watch for. There is something else. Now, the really important one is that when we get drowsy, it's because things have gotten tired inside and that we can do things that re-energize us. That in fact, this is where the breathing comes in. That as soon as you notice drowsiness coming, before you actually start nodding, but you can recognize that you're getting a little sleepy or a little tired or whatever, that's the time to make full attention to breathing. Make sure that you're breathing in long. Make sure that you're breathing out long. Make sure, sati, with each breath, that it's a long, deep breath, and we can tell because it actually has an energizing quality to it. That it should, in fact, energize. That when we take that long, deep breath, especially the out breath, neuroscientists have come to understand this. This is part of Buddhism and has been there for centuries. But neuroscientists are beginning to find out that a long, deep out breath in the form of a sigh is very, very purifying. And we really let it out. That the body accumulates carbon dioxide. When the body accumulates carbon dioxide, that changes the pH level of our breathing. That in fact, yawning is one of the uh, biological mechanisms where when the body actually recognizes that the pH level has gotten too high, when there's too much carbon dioxide in the body, the carbon dioxide plus water or blood equals carbonic acid.
Same thing that happens with ocean acidification.
Right. That's what is also called acid rain.
Mm-hmm.
Acid rain is when there's a lot of carbon dioxide in the air, and when it rains, the rain will pick up that carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide is the byproduct of being alive, just like it's the outcome. It's the byproduct of any fire. And so making sure that we're breathing well and getting rid of that poisonous carbon dioxide out of the system is a major part of the practice. So breathing in well and breathing out well. If we're breathing in well, we bring in oxygen. The oxygen then comes into the blood, and when we're just sitting there, free from anxiety, by the way, just sitting there, then all of that oxygen in the blood can go to the brain. If we are uptight, anxious, and in a fight flight mechanism of fear, then the body will retain that blood getting ready to fight. A clear example of that is that if you can get your opponent angry, he can't think straight. This is why they won't allow ad hominem attacks in debates, is because if you attack the debater rather than his topic of debate, then he'll get angry, frustrated, uptight, upset. He'll change the topic and he won't be able to continue the debate very well. It's a winner's thing. This is also, you see that in WWE and all the other places when they really work hard trying to get the opponent angry, but that's all
Hmm.
a scam.
Hmm.
The
It
reality
wouldn't
is
work
you
if.
want to work up the audience, not work up the other client or the other fighter. But if you can get the other fighter angry, and they do that with each other, they want to piss the other guy off. Because if you
Hmm.
can get him uptight and angry at you, then he can't fight as well as if he's really clear thinking. So this is
You know that.
related then to the drowsiness that we're talking about. That in fact, when people are fighting, they get drowsy mentally very quickly.
Hmm.
Can't can't think straight.
I think I kind of mentioned this. I mentioned this like just kind of as like a tiny little in a fraction of a second last time we spoke. But one thing I've observed um, is that the sense of self is stored as tension in the body. I'm not sure if that's something that is just something I notice or if you've noticed that. But the
They're
stronger,
closely
strong.
related. I wouldn't say what stores what, but I do know that selfishness is directly associated with bad feelings. That when we feel really good, for instance, when we feel really wealthy, we want to share. But if we're afraid that we don't have enough money, then we get really selfish.
Yeah, it seems like such a tight correlation because like feeling conditions craving, right? And there's just a close relationship between feeling and craving. And craving essentially, as I've seen it, is manifests as tension in various parts of the body.
Hmm.
And when the
Can
meditation
be.
gets really deep, when the meditation gets really deep and the body gets very, very soft to the point where you can't feel it anymore, temporarily, just during that state, that sense of me goes when that sense of the body goes, when all that tension disappears. And if you look at people who are very have very like light egos, like Thai people compared to American people, they have much more soft, relaxed bodies. If you were to like shove them, there's not like a tense kind of reaction as much as somebody with like a big, strong ego. They have a lot of tension in their body. If you try to shove them, they immediately like lock up and get angry. Um, and so, um, the whole relaxing the body, um, calming the breath, the body conditioner, using wholesome feeling to relax the mind. It sort of seems to create a condition where there's such a lack of tension in the body that you get like a temporary vacation from that subject position of me. And then at that point, if you go on to examine impermanence and things like that, you can gain a lot of insight from it. um, so that's sort of where I'm getting hindered. Like it was at one point easy for me to get to that point of deep relaxation, uplifted joy, body absent, and that sense of me suspending. But now it's like there's almost like a fork in the road where you can go that way or you can go into drowsiness, and my mind just keeps going into drowsiness instead. So using this be satisfied now kind of right attitude that you talk about, that made everything click for me in at work. A really good testimony is I'm a teacher. I'm an English teacher, and grading essays always causes me a lot of tension. I was really stressed about it, and I just had like a big day on the IB calendar where I had a bunch of essays to grade, and I was like, okay, let's see if I can use Dhammarato's recommendation and just keep relaxing and being satisfied. And I managed not to stress out once while I was grading all those essays. I've never accomplished that before. So miraculously, it's working really well in daily life. So I guess what I'm calling you more so about today is, after I've got the state of satisfaction sort of continuous, aside from continuing to do that, what should I do next? I feel like that question is kind of like, has craving built into it, but what's sort of like the next step, I guess you could say, the next rung on the ladder. And then of course, I'm trying not to, I guess the one craving that's still there, is to get back to that kind of capability in my sitting practice where I can achieve what I was just mentioning. So that's where I'm kind of trying to go, I guess. If that makes.
Okay. I've gotten my screen messed up. Let me see if I can get it straightened out again. There we go. That's it. Okay, so there is one more thing about the breathing. That first off, you've already made the connection that many times when you're getting drowsy, you know it. That the time to know it is not when you're coming out of the drowsiness, is to know it is when you're going into it.
Mm-hmm.
Or whenever you notice it, the way to come out of it is with the breathing. And so this is where both the long and the short breath can come in. But all of it has to do with making the change. Okay. And so there is actually a sutta where the Buddha talks about that one of the things we can do is rub our limbs, rub the arms, that for some reason this has a wake up call. If that doesn't do it, then we can wipe the face, getting the face. Mm-hmm. And also, if it's a chronic situation, we can have a wet cloth or a wet rag that we can take that cooling cloth and wipe the body. That will refresh. Okay. Now, the other thing which I want to mention, which is actually quite profound, is the short breathing technique. Because when you're doing the short breathing technique, that's step 2 of Anapanasati, and very few people really talk much about it. But the short breath is quite energizing and quite purifying. And while you're doing the short breath, it's hard to think of anything else.
Mm-hmm.
But that's one of the very values of it is that when we get, let us say, stuck in some sort of thought pattern, like we just can't get that fight that I had with Aunt Susie off my mind. Okay, that's the kind of thing that the second will the long the short breath will be very good for, because while we're actually practicing the short breath, you can't do anything else.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like
if you start to do something else, then the mind will wander away from the short breathing, and we're really holding that. You see, with the long breath, we're only holding it gently, and it's actually easy for the mind to wander away from the breath, and we don't even know it.
Mm-hmm. And it's also a little bit hypnotic, the long breath.
Mm-hmm. But the short breath requires us to pay attention. Now, the short breath, we can think of it is when people think that they're out of breath.
Mm-hmm.
Climbing stairs, climbing a mountain, running hard, that kind of stuff, and we get what is called winded.
Mm-hmm.
And so we start breathing heavily in order to get the body back into its homeostasis, because in fact, when we're really tired like that, that's because the respiratory system is not up to the task that the legs were into, that the legs are actually pumping and working and doing all of that kind of stuff. And so we have to get the breathing up to that level. Otherwise, we'll get tired. And so people, in fact, they'll say, let me rest and catch my breath. right? Why is that?
Hmm.
It's because we don't like that short, uh, strong breathing. We want to catch our breath, which means we want to stop it and bring it back to ordinary breathing, because that's what we're used to, and we don't like that heaving breathing. And so students are quite likely to quit the second um, step with Anapanasati, the short breath, simply because we don't like it. But we can, in fact, continue with it. So let's use that now, and we'll do it for a couple of minutes, okay? Just to give you an idea of, we don't have to do it for 5 or 10 minutes. That's too much.
Hmm.
But can you do it for 2 minutes? Okay. So start following my lead, and I'll give you the short breath now. Okay.
Okay. Is it
Now,
is the short breath like, is it kind of like hyperventilating or?
yes, absolutely. That's what we're going to do. We're
Okay.
going to ventilate. Hyper is optional.
Okay.
Okay. And with that, we can use both the nostrils and the mouth for in breathing, and then we can use mostly the mouth for the out breath. Okay. Because we're breathing so much and we're not going to be doing this so long. The normal breathing, especially the long breathing, we want to do it through the nose so that it will, the nostril breathing will warm the air, and it will purify the air. It cleans the air to where mouth breathing doesn't do any cleaning. Everything that you breathe through in the mouth will go directly into the lungs. But with nose breathing, that's better. So it's actually
Can I
better.
do it all through the nose?
The long breath you can do all through the nose, but
Okay,
the
but with the
short
short one, you want me
breathing,
to go out through the mouth?
the nose doesn't give us enough air. That when we're
Okay.
really heating for air, we do it mostly through the mouth or any air hole that we can find. Okay, so that's the point is that it's okay to use the mouth breathing for the second, because we're not going to be doing it all of that long. 2 minutes, in fact, is more than most people can handle. Okay, so now let's start doing it. You can catch my lead, and I'll keep you up with it. Okay.
Okay.
Make sure the arms are really moving. The whole body moves. You should already begin to feel lightheaded. Notice what's happening with the body.
So,
Uh-huh. You see, I told you. Keep going.
sorry.
Let yourself get really lightheaded. All right, settle down into the long breath now. Some people call it lightheaded, but another way of looking at it is the whole body is energized. The reason that the body feels lightheaded is because you've got oxygen in the brain now. It's hard to be drowsy when you're in this state.
Yeah, it feels like a temporary like high kind of.
It is a high, and it's with the breath. You can't get yourself high with it.
Yeah, it made me start giggling uncontrollably for a while. It kind of feels similar to PT, actually,
It
like a
mhm.
self-induced kind of temporary PT.
Being
Not
fully
quite as like.
alive, vibrantly alive. I can do this.
Mhm.
I can handle this. That's the whole attitude. Yes, it does. This is why
It
the
make
Buddha mentions the short breath.
it's odd because I've been associated with Buddhism for more than 20 years, and I've never met one single person, even after listening to Ajahn Buddhadasa and reading his books, I didn't click that you can do all this intentionally. Like there's all this like convincing yourself that everything has to be super passive. You know, don't interrupt the thoughts, just watch the thoughts, don't mess with the breathing, just watch the breathing. And as soon as you told me, create wholesome thoughts, and then just now, you know, actually control the breathing, completely flips everything upside down. So I don't understand why there's this bias against doing that. I'm just going to sit here and
Oh,
wait patiently for the
here it
mind to change
is.
on its own.
Here it is. The Western mind state is all about results. It's all about the end game. And so when they hear the end game is upekkha, or
Mm-hmm.
peacefulness and quiet, let's say, well, let's do that then.
Yes,
They
that's,
try to
yeah,
go
when
to the
I,
very end without actually understanding the actual practice that the Buddha lays out that requires effort.
yeah, and you know, I actually had that exact same thought when there's debates around the Heart Sutra. You know, I'm like, when you listen to the Heart Sutra, that's an enlightened mind speaking. You don't have an enlightened mind. You can't sit there and act like, you know, you like there's no defilements and there's no everything that's negated in the Heart Sutra. Like that's what the world looks like from the perspective of a mind that's already awakened, and then you're just trying to, you know, like okay, because a lot of people react like a lot of people in the Zen tradition, kind of just kind of like, oh, like everything's kind of cool, you know. I mean, even Alan Watts, he was such a profound intellect. He drank himself to death, you know. Um, he just drank so much that he died at age 56. So I always thought there was a danger in Westerners being exposed so much to the end and then trying to be at the end from the beginning, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Right.
like if a doctor
That
tells you
it,
that you have cancer, and then after we give you this chemotherapy, you'll be free of cancer. It's like, oh, okay, I'm free of cancer now. You know.
um, I saw that when I was deeply involved with a huge number of people who were really deeply involved with music. Piano players, they want to play not what they can play, they want to play the hardest music there is. And they're frustrated then when they
Mm-hmm.
can't play the really hard music. And instead of going back and getting the basics, they work too hard to get that spectacular piece going, ending in frustration. That's the Western
Mm-hmm.
mindset. We apply it to music, we apply it to sports, we apply it to all kinds of things. That a that a little kid needs softballs to be able to catch, so that we can develop the skill of learning how to catch a ball. It's only when we have the skill that we can catch those hard fastballs that come out of nowhere. That's a skill
Yeah,
to be developed.
it seems so obvious like now, but I feel it's almost sad. I feel like a lot of Buddhists or anybody on some kind of spiritual any contemplative tradition, you can spend your whole life just sitting there waiting for a satisfied mind, you know, and just develop a lot of patience. And when you could have just made the choice to be satisfied from the beginning and then use that state of satisfaction as the foundation of your insight practice or whatever, which is
I
what's clicked
know.
now finally.
I'm glad.
And I
That's
guess it took.
that's an important point, and that it seems to not even be taught well in the Mahasi method or in the Westerners. It's almost like that people get so gung ho about the Dhamma that they want to teach the Dhamma, but they're doing it without having all the colors of the rainbow.
Mm-hmm.
And so they
I'm
wind up
wondering how
painted
you.
black and white and gray. Go ahead.
I'm wondering how you got to this method the way you teach, because I mean, I know you were a student of Buddhadasa. Maybe he's poorly translated, and he's definitely at the top of my list of Dhamma teachers who I follow. But for even reading and listening to him, it never really came across in the way that, and one of the things I've been enjoying is watching you talk to different students who have different personalities and different attachments in those personalities, and watching the way that you constantly interrupt their patterns of thought, frustrating them until the point that they give up and just be satisfied. And I'm like, I've never seen anybody do that before. So I'm kind of wondering how you came to this method, because it's really effective. And
Actually, Bhikkhu Buddhadasa, the way that he teaches Anapanasati is the way that it's presented in the suttas, in the sense of the Satipatthana, which we start with the body and we talk about the body, and then we go to the feelings and talk about the feelings, and then we go to the mind and talk about the mind, and then the mind's objects, okay? But the Eightfold Noble Path is the method that we practice Anapanasati, and yet the Western mentality, and I know a lot of the history, I won't get into it too much, is that they look at the combination of the Satipatthana and Anapanasati. And many of them wind up just staying with the Satipatthana and not getting into the Anapanasati. To where the right way to look at it is just doing the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Noble Path. And that's what we're practicing, is the Eightfold Noble Path. And the way that we do that is with Anapanasati. And that's what makes it click, is the point about the right view is all, the right effort is often missing in the Western method. And what is the right effort is to remove the unwholesome thoughts and replace them with wholesome thoughts, the gladdening the mind. Now, I've got several books on Anapanasati that Bhikkhu Buddhadasa has done over the years. He actually didn't do the books, he just gave talks.
Mm-hmm.
And in one of the books that I have, is in the gladdening of the mind section, which winds up about page 216, 218 in the book, where Bhikkhu Buddhadasa mentions this is the first thing you've got to do. Well, Bhikkhu Buddhadasa, why didn't you put that on page 1 then, if it's the first thing that we've got to do? Why did it wait to page 216? And you see, with those kind of books in that way, we think that it's sort of like a study guide, and that you got to practice what you're reading rather than getting a whole overview. And so that's the thing that I've started teaching is to do it according to the Eightfold Noble Path, rather than according to either the Satipatthana, which is the way the Mahasi method does, or the way that Bhikkhu Buddhadasa talks about it in the Anapanasati, in the order of the Satipatthana. That the correct order of things is listed in the Eightfold Noble Path.
And the way that you teach see dukkha and experience cessation or satisfaction right now is the first time that those two qualities of the Dhamma, apparent here and now, immediately effective, I'm like, okay, that's why it says that. That's why they say that. It's completely like a right now thing. Apparent here and now, immediately effective. Like, as quickly as pouring water on a fire cools it.
Just like the short breathing that we were doing a few minutes ago, it's not only immediately effective, but if you'll recollect right now, you'll recognize that breathing that we did 10 minutes ago is still effective.
I was just thinking about that. Yeah,
that
definitely.
Energy, that level that built up, that's still there, is unlikely now, even after it's been 10 minutes since you did that short breath, to be drowsy. It's unlikely for you to be drowsy now, because you've gotten the body energized.
Another thing we do in the West is, and I'm guilty of this, and I feel like I'm almost ready to give it up, is that we spend our entire lives treating it as a philosophy, trying to like dig into the text and get the right interpretation and create debates and discussions over it, and can kind of create a continuous dialectic over the texts. And Western philosophy did that. And when you get to the end of Western philosophy, they're typically like, none of this matters, like the 20th century philosophers, they basically just get to the point like, I don't think that truth matters. And, like it's just kind of like, it kind of folds in on itself by the end, because you can't really get to it in that way,
Always the philosophy, um, we, let us say it this way. We get a lot of really, really good stuff from the philosophy. We read that stuff and we say, spot on, that's exactly right. And then we forget it. And so the
Hmm.
thought comes later, oh, I got such a good idea from that philosophy. Let me go back and get some more. Let me go read some more philosophy.
Hmm.
And that's the mistake. The right thing to do was, oh, I learned something from philosophy. Let me go practice that
Hmm.
over and over and over again. It's like being able to hear a piece of music on the radio and then being able to play it. Nobody can do that. Nobody can hear a brand new piece on the radio and play. When I say nobody, let us say non musicians. They can hear a piano piece on the radio and then they sit down at the piano and play it. Not a chance. Not a chance. And yet we expect that from philosophy now, don't we?
Yes.
We expect to just read it out of a book and then being able to do it. Can't do it. No, we got to
Yeah, I think our
practice.
attitude, like, and again, I'm probably guilty of this. No, I definitely am. But our attitude towards the Dhamma is like, if we went into the gym and looked at the weights and thought if we lift them once, we're gonna like get super jacked, or just look at the weights and talk about them, and we're gonna get super
Uh-huh.
buff.
Right. Well, that's
Um,
another thing about
so-
Westerners is that they think that getting those experience of getting super puffed is all that they need to do. Perhaps getting super puffed and then getting super puffed again and then getting super puffed again sometime in the future, et cetera, like that, that's the way that they practice. Oh, I'm going to go do a retreat next month so that I can get super pumped,
Mhm.
right? That's the whole idea. So we're very experience oriented without recognizing that every moment, every here now moment is an experience.
Oh, and also
Every
you're
one
the
of them.
first.
You've got an experience right now, and now you've got a different experience right now, and it keeps changing over and over and over again. So, why do we keep looking for special experiences? The answer to that is let's not look for special experiences. Let's see that this one, and now this one, and now this one is good enough, sufficient, satisfactory, without looking for peak experiences. And the more often we can do that, then the more developed we are, because we all revert back to special times, special experiences. Oh, we finally got the bill, or oh, we finally got the EIN, or oh, we finally got the website, or oh, we finally seen the light, or oh, we finally gotten disillusioned, etc., like that. And so we're looking for mileposts. Basically, what we keep doing is we keep asking the question, how am I doing, Daddy?
Hmm.
And that the answer to that is based in a particular high point experience. And so we start to measure things from those high points rather than looking at the base average. And the real teaching of the Buddhism, the real teaching of the Buddha, is to let's start raising that baseline. Never mind how
Hmm.
high we can go, let's get the baseline moving. Right now, let's come out of our misery, disgust, and anger and come into satisfaction. And remember to do that again and again and to start raising that baseline so that we spend more and more time in satisfaction. Good enough satisfaction, not spectacular high point satisfaction, just satisfaction. Now, the thing that's really interesting is that as we practice satisfaction, we get pretty good at it. And it gets better because we're practicing it. But being dissatisfied and saying I'm satisfied but I want more. I've got joy but it's not enough joy, etc., like that. That's not practicing satisfaction. That's actually practicing
Mhm.
dissatisfaction in the name of satisfaction. So being fully satisfied with what's happening right now,
I'm
that's
more
the trick.
so chase insight. I do.
Sorry, what was that?
I said I spend a lot more time chasing insight than I do feeling. But of course, the effect of insight is something similar to feeling. Speaking of which, you're also the first person I spoke to about the Matrix, and I don't know if you did this on purpose, but you pointed out something that I had never noticed before, which I think is a perfect illustration of emptiness or anatta, which is you said that when Neo at the end of the Matrix can dodge the bullets, you know, that's what we like that we get to the point where we can dodge the bullets. But what came into my mind when you said that is the reason that Neo can dodge the bullets in the Matrix, and actually at the very end, he doesn't even have to dodge them. He can just stop them and pluck them out of the air. And the reason for that is because he knows that that's just an avatar, that he's not really there inside the Matrix. It's an avatar. It's a construct of himself inside this computer program. And I thought to myself,
But that's exactly correct. In that
and that's what
regard,
we are.
yes, that's exactly what we are. So
Yeah.
the example that we can use with the idea of the bullets is that first off, we learn to recognize that all who he is criticizing is someone in his own mind, not actually
Mm-hmm.
me. So when somebody says Dhammarato is not enlightened, Dhammarato doesn't know what he's talking about. The Dhammarato that you're talking about is inside their own mind, not here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if we can understand that, then the criticisms are not mine. I can dodge
Mm-hmm.
those bullets.
Yeah, I mean, it's because you're not even
It's
really
not
there.
me. He's pointing his gun. He's pointing his criticism gun in the wrong direction.
Mm-hmm. At a hallucination he's having that he calls Dhammarato.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the ways that you can think of it is that people will listen to a video, maybe the first time that they see a video, and they'll find something to disagree with, and so they'll write in the comments, "Oh, Dhammarato doesn't know anything. He's not enlightened. This kind of stuff." And the fact is, they don't even know me. I don't even know me
Uh-huh. Well,
because I'm a moving target. So that's back to the matrix. So this is the point that I'm making is that if you can get the attitude that the criticism that people are trying to give to you, they're not. They can only give that to the you that's in their mind. So the Michael that's in their mind is who they're criticizing, not the actual. Okay. So the point that I was about to make is that if we stand and make a target of ourselves, we give them something to shoot at. And then when they hit you, it's because we made ourselves a target.
mm-hmm.
If you don't make yourself a target, then they'll miss because there's no target there.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like in
There's
the
nothing here to
arcade,
defend.
you've got the little duckies go by. The ones you can't hit are the ones that have already been knocked over.
You can't shoot a mirage.
You can't shoot a mirage, right? You can't hit it.
Yeah.
And so that's part of it. So are you fast enough to stand out of your own way so that when the criticisms or the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune come barreling down, they miss you? They didn't get you.
Yeah. I mean, at the point where I'm at is I'm the only one who's firing anything at me. So it's really just getting out of that process.
Well, you're the
Which
one who is firing the most of the ammunition anyway, which is the next
yeah.
one. They didn't even cover that in the movie. They thought that it was somebody outside that was shooting all that ammunition. The fact is that we're blowing ourselves away with our rules and our regulations and all kinds of things, that we don't have to stand and be a target of somebody else's criticism. We're already good at standing and criticizing ourselves and then feeling bad.
Mm-hmm.
Are you sharp enough
Yeah, I mean,
to see that and stop pointing your guns at yourself?
mm-hmm. I think so. I think now, yes. Don't know why it took so long to click.
Right. So instead of loading up with a bunch of lead, load up with a sugar pill. So
Placebo.
change your ammunition, change your thought. And when you can do it, when you can dodge the sugar pills, now you've made it. But don't fire lead at yourself. Learn to have some wholesome thoughts instead. That's the real part of the practice. And it's right there in the suttas. It's right there in Bhikkhu Buddhadasa's books.
Mm-hmm.
But our confirmation biases often get in the way of us seeing exactly the right way to practice.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like simple and profound, and I would say 98% of people are probably, well, I can only assume, at least in what I've been exposed to, don't seem to be doing it that way, or this way.
Well, many of the people who are practicing meditation are already developing a few of the skills. They do develop sati. They do remember to look. So they wake up and they take a look, and then they feel bad, as opposed to
But I think
waking up, taking a look, and then making a change in order to feel good.
I think the part that is the most significant that didn't click until just recently is the do that right now, like right now. Because every time you think about your practice, it's at least a minute in the future, if usually further in the future that you're thinking about. You're not thinking this thought right now, this moment right now. And for me, that's what changed it, is that you keep reminding everybody you talk to do that right now. This is the thought. Okay, what am I going to do when I go sit on the cushion? Or, so here it is right here. It's right,
So the next big step to make is to start congratulating yourself. And I congratulate you to get you rolling, that you got it made. You know what to do now, that you're the winner now. You're the champion of your own life now. All you have to do is keep remembering and keep playing it and keep doing it, but you've got it. That's the right attitude that we're developing. You're the winner now. You're the lion in the room.
Okay.
So allow yourself that success. Allow yourself to be successful. You don't have to listen to all of the criticisms that you give yourself about what you don't have, and start relishing in the fact that you've got enough. Got everything I need. I'm only a dump truck. I'm not a ship. I can only handle a dump truck load of dirt or wood or whatever. So enough is enough already. That's what we have to go for. Is that what we got is good enough? It's satisfying. It's not as big as it could be, but it's good enough. And so congratulate yourself. You can do it. You've got it. You can feel like a winner. You can feel like the no longer the victim. And so begin to remember that, to put that into your thoughts also, that you got this. You got it made.
Okay. I can do that.
And pretty soon you keep telling yourself those kind of happy thoughts, and from time to time you'll begin to have the realization, that's right, I do have it. I am okay. And
You know,
those are the
and
kind
thinking,
of experience moments that we really want to have, is those experience moments of realization that this is all there is to it and that you could do it.
is this what Buddhadasa means when he talks about atamayata? Like you just become sort of imperturbable, essentially.
Okay, right. Atam mayata, when we break that word down, atam means not to do, maya. Okay, so we begin to avoid Mara. In fact, we get the attitude that I can avoid it. Atam Maya Ta, the word ta is like an expletive. Many of the suttas and phrases that the monks memorize will end in the word ta. It's almost like a period or an exclamation point. And the word ti is the same. Atamayata, or in Buddho Bhagavati. Okay, we put that ta at the end of it to put the force of it. Okay, so atamaya would be okay to say, but atamaya ta, that's that extra added success that we put into it. And so then we can express it of ain't going to have nothing to do with Maya. Ta.
Mm.
Not do that crap. Ta.
Or tui.
Not entertain unwholesome thoughts. Ta.
Okay, I like that.
Okay. Right. Okay. So that
It's gonna
this is
spit it out.
that that feeling of success, feeling of I got it.
Definitely makes life a lot easier.
Mhm. All right. Well, let's go ahead and finish now, because I think that this is the place to go to, is start working with that um, success. That the satisfaction turns into success. The success builds confidence. The confidence changes your attitude from being a student into somebody that can actually perform. You got it. You can do this.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. All right. Well, we'll see you in a few days then. You keep practicing.
Alrighty, I'll see you then.
I'm
Thank you.
really enjoy it when students come in and say, "Got it. I got it." Okay, Michael. Ta
Swadika.
ta for now. See ya.
See ya.